The stars look different today. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the New Horizons space station, watching Earth slowly turn below him. The blue marble looked peaceful from up here, with white clouds drifting over the continents, like they had for millions of years, but something was wrong. The deep space sensors had been picking up strange readings for the past week. Jake was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes. He had been in space for 15 years, watching over Earth's orbital defenses. Nothing exciting ever happened out here. Pirates sometimes tried to steal supply ships, but that was about it. The most dangerous thing Jake usually dealt with was making sure the coffee machine in the break room worked properly. That changed when the alarm started screaming. "Captain Morrison to the command center immediately," came the voice over the intercom. Jake dropped his coffee cup and ran through the narrow corridors of the station. His boots made loud, clanking sounds on the metal floor as he rushed toward the command center. When he arrived, the room was full of people staring at screens with worried faces. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Sir, you need to see this," she said, pointing at the main screen. Long-range sensors picked up something big coming out of hyperspace near the moon. Jake looked at the screen. At first, he saw nothing but stars and the familiar gray surface of the moon. Then something shimmered like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The air itself seemed to twist and bend. Suddenly, ships appeared out of nowhere. They were not human ships. Jake had seen every type of spacecraft that humans had ever built. These were something else entirely. They looked like they were made of crystal and metal, with smooth curves and no sharp edges. They were beautiful in a way that made Jake's stomach feel sick. Beautiful things in space usually meant trouble. "How many?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice steady. 15 ships, sir. The biggest one is 3 times larger than anything we have ever built," Amy replied. "They're just sitting there, not moving." Jake stared at the screen. First contact. Every human had wondered when this day would come. Scientists had argued about it for decades. Some thought aliens would be friendly. Others thought they would be hostile. Nobody really knew what to expect. "Any communication attempts?" Jake asked. "Nothing yet, sir." "They have been silent for the past 10 minutes. Jake was about to order his crew to try sending a message when the main screen flickered. A face appeared on the screen. It was definitely not human. The creature had gray skin that looked like stone, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. Its mouth was too wide, with teeth that looked sharp enough to cut metal. When it spoke, its voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Inhabitants of the 3rd planet," the creature said in perfect English, though its accent was strange. "I am War Commander Thextile of the Zephyrian Collective. Your world has been chosen for integration into our empire." Jake felt his blood turn cold. This was not the peaceful first contact that scientists had hoped for. "You will surrender control of your planet within 72 Earth hours," Thextile continued. "Any resistance will be met with the complete destruction of your civilization. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact." The screen went black. The command center was silent except for the humming of computers and the sound of people breathing too fast. "Get me a line to Earth Defense Command," Jake said quietly. Priority 1. While Amy worked on the communication link, Jake looked out the window at the alien ships. They hung in space like deadly jewels, beautiful and terrifying. He had read about the Zephyrian Collective in intelligence reports. They were conquerors who had taken over 17 star systems. They had never been defeated in battle. They had never even been seriously challenged. The communication link crackled to life. A woman's voice came through the speakers, clear and professional despite the situation. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Grant at Earth Defense Command. We received your transmission, Captain Morrison. The President has been informed. We are calling an emergency session of the Global Defense Council." Jake had met Lisa Grant once at a military conference. She was a smart woman with red hair and the kind of mind that could solve problems while everyone else was still trying to figure out what the problem was. If anyone could figure out how to deal with this situation, it was her. "What are your orders, Colonel?" Jake asked. "Hold position and monitor the alien fleet. Do not engage unless they make the first move. We are scrambling every available ship to your location, but it will take time." Jake understood. Earth's space fleet was not designed for major battles. Most of their ships were built for patrol duty and dealing with small threats. They had some warships, but nothing that could stand up to a fleet of alien conquerors. "Colonel, I have to ask," Jake said. "Do we have any chance against these ships?" There was a long pause before Lisa answered. "We are analyzing their technology now, Dr. Peter. Collins is leading a team to study their communication signals and try to understand their capabilities. But Jake, I will be honest with you. Based on what we know about the Zephyrian Collective, this does not look good." Jake nodded, even though Lisa could not see him. He had expected that answer. The Zephyrians had conquered 17 star systems. They had technology that humans could barely understand. They had armies that had never been defeated. "There is one thing, though," Lisa continued. "Dr. Collins thinks there might be a way to communicate with them. He believes they might be willing to negotiate if we can show them that we are not just primitive savages." Jake looked at the alien ships again. They had not moved since arriving. They were just waiting like predators watching their prey. "I hope Dr. Collins is right," Jake said. Down on Earth, the news was spreading fast. Every television channel and internet site was talking about the alien ships. Some people were panicking, packing their cars and trying to leave the cities. Others were praying in churches and mosques and temples. A few were even celebrating, thinking that contact with aliens would bring new technology and knowledge. President Hamilton appeared on television to address the nation. He was an older man with white hair and a calm voice that made people feel safer just by listening to him. "My fellow Americans and citizens of the world," he began. "We face an unprecedented challenge, but we have faced challenges before. We have survived wars, disasters, and threats that seemed impossible to overcome. We will survive this too." Jake watched the president's speech on a small screen in the command center. He wished he felt as confident as the president sounded. Doctor Peter Collins was working in his laboratory at the Xenobiology Research Center, trying to decode the alien communication systems. He was a thin man with thick glasses who spent most of his time thinking about things that other people found boring. Today, his boring work might save the world. "The Zephyrians use a complex mathematical language," he explained to his assistant, Helen Parker, "but I think I can create a basic translation program. The problem is that we do not understand their culture. We do not know what they really want or how they think." Helen nodded. She was a young woman who had just graduated from college with a degree in linguistics. She had taken this job thinking she would be studying theoretical alien languages. Now she was trying to prevent a war. "Dr. Collins," she said, "what if they are not interested in negotiation? What if they really just want to conquer us?" "Doctor," Collins looked up from his computer screen, "then we will have to find another way to survive. Because surrender is not an option, not for our species." Back on the New Horizons station, Jake was preparing for what might be the last 72 hours of human independence. The alien ships continued to wait in space, silent and threatening. Soon, Earth would have to give them an answer. Jake hoped it would be the right one. The 72 hours passed like a nightmare. Jake Morrison watched the countdown timer on his command screen tick down to 0. Around him, his crew worked quietly, checking weapon systems and preparing for what everyone knew would be a hopeless battle. The alien ships had not moved from their position near the moon, but long-range sensors showed they were charging their weapons. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Defense Command," Amy Rodriguez announced. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. The main screen flickered and Colonel Lisa Grant appeared. Behind her, Jake could see the busy command center on Earth, with dozens of people working at computer stations. "Captain Morrison, the President has made his decision," Lisa said. "We will not surrender. Repeat, we will not surrender to the Zephyrian." Collective. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. He had hoped for this answer, but he also knew what it meant. War with an enemy that had never been defeated. All Earth defense ships are to engage the alien fleet, Lisa continued. Captain Amy Rodriguez will take command of the carrier as Yorktown. Captain Morrison, you will coordinate the defense from New Horizons Station. Jake looked at Amy, who nodded grimly. She was young for such a big responsibility, but she was the best pilot in the fleet. If anyone could make a difference in this fight, it was her. Colonel, what about civilian evacuations? Jake asked. Already in progress, Lisa replied. Major cities are being evacuated, but we both know there is nowhere to hide if we lose this battle. The Zephyrians have weapons that can destroy entire continents. The transmission ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. Through the observation window, he could see the first Earth defense ships arriving. They looked tiny compared to the alien vessels, like insects flying toward a giant shoe aboard the EDS Yorktown. Amy Rodriguez was preparing for the most important battle of her life. The carrier was humanity's most powerful warship, but it was still primitive compared to Zephyrian technology. The ship's bridge was cramped and noisy, with crew members shouting orders and checking systems. All fighter squadrons report ready, called out Commander Blake Turner, the ship's air wing commander. He was a serious man in his 30s who had trained every pilot on the ship. We have 60 fighters ready to launch. Amy looked at the tactical display showing the alien fleet. 15 ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. The math was simple and terrifying. Launch all fighters, Amy ordered. All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We attack in Formation Alpha. Remember, we are not trying to win this battle. We are trying to show them that humans do not give up without a fight. Amy had been promoted to admiral just minutes before the battle began. She was probably the youngest admiral in military history, but rank did not matter now. Only results mattered. The human fleet moved toward the alien ships. There were 12 Earth defense vessels in total, with the Yorktown leading the charge. Behind them came destroyers, cruisers, and frigates, all loaded with humanity's best weapons, War Commander. Vextal watched the approaching human ships from the bridge of his flagship. He was surrounded by his officers, all of them wearing the gray uniforms of the Zephyrian military. To Vextal, this looked like a suicide attack by a desperate species. Sub-Commander Velther, Vextal said to his second-in-command, prepare to destroy the human fleet. Make it quick. These creatures have suffered enough. Velther was younger than Vextal, with the same gray skin and 4 eyes, but his markings showed he was from a different clan. He had studied human behavior and was curious about their tactics. War Commander, should we not capture some of their ships for study? Velther asked. Their technology might be useful. Vextal made a sound that was like a laugh, but harder. Look at their ships, Velther. They are made of steel and ceramics. Our weapons will cut through them like paper. There will be nothing left to study. The two fleets met in the space between Earth and the Moon. The battle began with a massive exchange of weapons fire. Human missiles and laser beams struck the alien ships, creating bright flashes of light against their energy shields. The Zephyrian ships responded with beams of pure energy that could slice through metal, like a hot knife through butter. 3 human ships were destroyed in the first minute of fighting. The destroyer Eds Manila exploded in a ball of fire and metal. The cruiser Eds Berlin was cut in half by an alien energy beam. The frigate Eds Cairo simply vanished when a Zephyrian torpedo hit its reactor, but something unexpected happened. The human ships did not retreat. Instead, they spread out and began, using tactics that the Zephyrians had never seen before. The fighters from the Yorktown swarmed around the alien ships like angry bees, firing missiles and then disappearing before the aliens could target them. Commander Blake Turner led his fighter squadron in a desperate attack on the largest alien ship. His pilots flew in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully planned. They would attack from one direction, then suddenly change course and attack from another direction. Gold Squadron, hit them from below while they are distracted, Blake ordered over the radio. Red Squadron, target their sensor arrays. If we can blind them, we might have a chance. The Zephyrian gunners tried to track the fast-moving human fighters, but their weapons were designed for fighting large ships, not small, quick targets. Several alien ships actually shot each other by accident while trying to hit the human fighters on the Zephyrian flagship. Velthor was studying the human tactics with growing interest. War Commander, their attack patterns are highly irregular. They do not follow any logical strategy. Dextal watched as another human ship was destroyed, but not before it had damaged 2 Zephyrian vessels. They are desperate, Velthor. Desperate creatures do unpredictable things, but privately, Dextal was beginning to worry. The humans were supposed to surrender after seeing the power of the Zephyrian fleet. Instead, they were fighting harder than any species the Zephyrians had ever encountered. The battle continued for 2 hours. The human fleet was slowly being destroyed, but they were making the aliens pay for every victory. The Zephyrians had lost 3 ships and several others were damaged. This was supposed to be a quick conquest, not a real battle. Amy Rodriguez was fighting for her life aboard the Yorktown. The carrier had been hit several times and was leaking air from multiple holes in its hull. Half of her fighters had been destroyed, but the surviving pilots were still attacking the alien ships. Admiral, we are losing life support on Decks 5. Through 8, reported her engineering officer. Hull breaches on the port side. We cannot take much more damage. Amy looked at the tactical display. Only 6 human ships were still fighting. The aliens still had 12 ships, though several were damaged. The math was clear. Humanity was losing. All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez, Amy said over the radio. Prepare for final attack run. We are going to ram the alien flagship. It was a desperate plan, but Amy knew it was the only way to do real damage to the enemy. The Yorktown was dying anyway. At least this way, her death would mean something, but before Amy could give the order to ram the alien ship, something unexpected happened. The Zephyrian fleet stopped shooting. All of their weapons went silent at the same time. All human ships cease fire, came a transmission from the alien flagship. War Commander Dextal requests immediate communication with your leader. Amy stared at the screen in shock. In all of their battles, the Zephyrians had never asked for a ceasefire. They had never retreated. They had never shown any sign of weakness. Admiral Rodriguez to all ships, Amy said slowly. Hold your fire. Repeat, hold your fire. The space between Earth and the Moon became quiet. The 2 fleets floated in space, facing each other like boxers who had stopped fighting in the middle of a match. Wreckage from destroyed ships drifted. Between them, a reminder of the cost of war on the Zephyrian flagship, Dextal was having an argument with his officers. Velthor was standing in front of him, his 4 eyes bright with excitement. War Commander, these humans are not like the other species we have conquered, Velthor said. They fight differently. They think differently. They do not surrender when they should surrender. Dextal made an angry sound. They are losing, Velthor. We have destroyed half of their fleet. But they are still fighting, Velthor replied. Every other species we have encountered surrendered when they saw our power. The humans have seen our power, and they are still fighting. What if they never surrender? Dextal thought about this. The conquest of Earth was supposed to take 3 days. They had been fighting for only 2 hours, and already they had lost more ships than in their last 5 conquests combined. Open a channel to the human fleet, Dextal ordered. I want to understand what we are fighting. The transmission was sent to the EDS Yorktown, where Amy Rodriguez was trying to understand why the aliens had stopped shooting. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Danny Hughes, was working to establish a clear connection. Admiral, I have the alien commander on the main screen. Danny reported. Amy looked at the face of War Commander Dextal. His 4 eyes stared at her with what she thought might be curiosity. When he spoke, his voice was different than before. Less commanding, more questioning. Human Admiral, Dextal said, your species interests me. The ceasefire held for 6 hours. Both fleets remained in space, watching each other carefully. Nobody wanted to be the first to start shooting again. On Earth, emergency meetings were happening in every major government building. The President was working with military leaders and scientists to figure out what to do next. Dr. Peter Collins had not slept in 3 days. He was in his laboratory at the Xenobiology Research Center, working with his assistant Helen Parker to understand the alien communication systems. Empty coffee cups covered his desk and his clothes were wrinkled from sleeping in his chair. Dr. Collins, I think I figured out something important, Helen said, looking up from her computer screen. The Zephyrians use different words for different types of conflict. They have one word for battle, another word for conquest, and a third word for what they call cleansing wars. Peter looked at the translation on Helen's screen. The Zephyrian language was complex, with many different meanings for the same concept. What does cleansing war mean? Total destruction of the enemy, Helen replied. It seems like they use this when they encounter a species that refuses to surrender. They destroy everything, including the planet itself. Peter felt cold fear in his stomach. How many times have they done this? Helen scrolled through the data they had collected from alien transmissions. According to their records, they have destroyed 4 entire worlds. Billions of people died. Peter stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see people in the streets, some crying, some praying, some just standing and looking up at the sky. They had no idea how close they were to complete destruction. Helen, get me a direct line to Colonel Grant, Peter said. I have an idea, but we need to act fast. At Earth Defense Command, Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Grant was coordinating the defense of the planet. She had not slept either, and her red hair was messy from running her hands through it. The command center was full of people working at computers, trying to figure out how to fight an enemy they did not understand. Colonel Grant, Dr. Collins is on line 3, called out her communications officer. Lisa picked up the phone. Peter, please tell me you have good news. I have an idea, Peter said, but you are not going to like it. At this point I will listen to any idea, Lisa replied. The Zephyrians think like warriors, but they fight like chess players, Peter explained. They expect their enemies to surrender when they see they cannot win. They have rules for war that they follow strictly. When those rules are broken, they get confused. Lisa looked at the tactical display showing the 2 fleets in space. What are you suggesting? We need to show them what human war really looks like, Peter said. Not the sanitized version they saw in our first battle, the real thing. The ugly truth about what humans do when we are pushed to the edge. You want to show them our military footage? Lisa asked. All of it, Peter said. Everything from our history. Ancient battles, modern wars, guerrilla fighting, civilian resistance. We need to show them that humans do not fight like other species. We fight until we die, and sometimes we keep fighting even after that. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. She understood what Peter was suggesting. It was dangerous. If the aliens saw how brutal human warfare could be, they might decide to destroy Earth immediately rather than risk a long war. Peter, if we show them this footage, they might decide we are too dangerous to let live, Lisa said. They might, Peter agreed. But if we do not show them, they will definitely decide we are too weak to worry about. Either way, we are probably going to die. At least this way, we might make them think twice. Lisa looked around the command center. Young men and women were working to defend their world, knowing they would probably die in the attempt. They deserved a chance, even if it was a small one. Send me everything you have, Lisa said. I will get approval from the president. President Hamilton was in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by his advisors. The room was deep underground, protected by thick concrete and steel. It was designed to survive a nuclear war, but nobody knew if it could survive alien weapons. Mr. President, Dr. Collins has a proposal, Lisa said over the secure video link. He wants to send the aliens a complete archive of human warfare, everything from ancient battles to modern conflicts. The president was a man who had seen many difficult decisions in his career, but this was different. This decision could determine whether humanity survived or died. What does the Pentagon think? The president asked. General Robert Hayes, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was sitting across from the president. He was an old soldier who had fought in 3 different wars. His face was serious as he spoke. "Mr. President, it is a risk," General Hayes said. "If the aliens see how we really fight, they might decide to destroy us immediately. But if we do not try something, we are going to lose anyway." The president thought about the millions of people who were counting on him to make the right decision. He thought about the children who might never grow up, the families who might never be reunited, the future that might never exist. "Do it," the president said. "Send them everything." Back at the research center, Dr. Collins and Helen Parker began preparing the most important data package in human history. They worked with military historians, anthropologists, and psychologists to create a comprehensive view of human warfare. The archive began with ancient battles. Footage from museums and historical documentaries showing Greek warriors fighting at Thermopylae, Roman legions conquering Europe, medieval knights charging into battle. The aliens would see that humans had been fighting for thousands of years, always finding new ways to kill their enemies. Then came the modern wars. World War I with its trenches and poison gas and millions of dead soldiers. World War II with its massive battles and strategic bombing and the terrible efficiency of industrial warfare. The footage showed cities reduced to rubble, but also showed people continuing to fight even when their homes were destroyed. Major Danny Hughes, a military historian, helped select the most important pieces. He was a quiet man who had spent his career studying how humans fought and died. His job was usually academic, but now it might save the world. "Dr. Collins, we need to show them the guerrilla wars," Danny said. "Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. The footage where small groups of fighters held off entire armies using nothing but determination and knowledge of the terrain." Peter nodded. "What about civilian resistance? The French underground, the Warsaw Ghetto, the Hungarian Revolution?" "Definitely," Danny replied. "They need to see that human warfare is not just about soldiers. When humans are invaded, everyone becomes a fighter. Old men, women, even children will pick up weapons and fight." Helen was working on the psychological profiles that would accompany the footage. She wanted the aliens to understand why humans fought the way they did. "I am including philosophical texts about honor and sacrifice," Helen said. "Quotes from soldiers and civilians who chose to die rather than surrender. Poetry written by people who were facing death but refused to give up." The archive grew larger and more comprehensive. It included footage of kamikaze pilots diving their planes into enemy ships, knowing they would die but hoping to save their country. It showed prisoners of war who refused to break even under torture. It documented the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, where Jewish fighters with only a few weapons held off the German army for weeks. But the archive also showed the cost of human warfare. The footage included scenes of devastation, of cities destroyed, of families torn apart. It showed the terrible price that humans were willing to pay for their freedom. Dr. Collins included a special section about human military doctrine. He explained how humans studied their defeats and came back stronger, how they adapted to new weapons and new tactics, how they learned from their enemies and used that knowledge against them. "The aliens need to understand that defeating humans in one battle means nothing," Peter explained to Helen. "We learn from every fight. We get better at killing our enemies. We never stop adapting." The final section of the archive was the most important. It contained footage and documents about what humans called total war, the concept that in a real fight for survival, there were no rules and no limits. Cities could be destroyed, civilians could be targeted, entire populations could be turned into soldiers. Peter included footage from the siege of Leningrad, where people ate rats and leather to survive while still fighting the German army. He added documentation from the Pacific War, where Japanese civilians jumped off cliffs rather than surrendered to American forces. He included testimonies from resistance fighters who had chosen to die rather than reveal information about their comrades. "This is what the aliens are really fighting," Peter said as he finished the archive. "Not just our military, but our entire species. Every human who will pick up a weapon rather than surrender. Every person who will choose death over slavery." The archive was complete. It contained thousands of hours of footage, millions of documents, and the distilled essence of human warfare. It showed the aliens exactly what they would face if they chose to conquer Earth. Captain Jake Morrison received the archive on the New Horizon station. He was supposed to transmit it to the alien fleet, but first he wanted to see what Dr. Collins had prepared. War Commander Thextal stood in the main analysis chamber of his flagship. The room was large and circular, with walls covered in screens and holographic displays. Around him, his best tactical analysts and xenobiologists worked at their stations. Studying the massive data package that the humans had sent, Sub-Commander Velther approached him, carrying a data tablet. His 4 eyes were wide with what Thextal recognized as confusion. In 30 years of military service, Velther had never looked confused about anything. "War Commander, we have completed our initial review of the human archive," Velther said. "You need to see this immediately." Thextal followed Velther to the main viewing screen. The first piece of footage showed ancient human warriors fighting with bronze swords and wooden shields. To Thextal, it looked primitive and unimportant. "Why? Are you showing me this old footage?" Thextal asked. These humans fought with metal sticks. Their technology was even more primitive than it is now. "Watch what happens next," Velther replied. Advancing the footage, the screen showed a small group of human soldiers standing in a narrow mountain pass. They were outnumbered by at least 10 to 1, facing an army that stretched beyond the horizon. Any reasonable species would surrender immediately, but the humans did not surrender. They fought. They killed hundreds of enemy soldiers before they died. Even when it was clear they could not win, they kept fighting until the last man was dead. "This is from a battle called Thermopylae," Velther explained. 300 human soldiers held off an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they would die, but they fought anyway. Thextal watched more footage. Humans fighting in trenches covered in mud and blood while explosions destroyed everything around them. Humans charging across open fields into machine gun fire, knowing they would probably die. Humans defending cities even when the buildings were collapsing around them. "Show me their modern warfare." Thextal ordered. The screen changed to show footage from World War II. Thextal watched human aircraft diving into enemy ships, deliberately crashing and killing themselves to damage their opponents. He saw human soldiers fighting house to house in a destroyed city, never retreating even when they were surrounded. "This does not make sense," Thextal said. "Why do they not surrender when defeat is certain?" Velther activated another display. We asked our behavioral analysts the same question. They believe it is a fundamental difference in how humans think about warfare. Watch this. The new footage showed something that made Thextal step backward in shock. It was from a place called the Warsaw Ghetto, where a small group of humans had fought against an army that was trying to destroy them. The humans had almost no weapons, no food, and no hope of victory. They fought anyway. They fought for weeks. Velther explained. They had a few rifles and some homemade explosives. The enemy had tanks, aircraft, and thousands of soldiers. The humans knew they could not win, but they kept fighting until they were all dead. Thextal watched the footage in silence. In Zephyrian culture, warfare was about demonstrating strength and achieving surrender. When the outcome was clear, the losing side accepted defeat gracefully. It was civilized. It was logical. This was not civilized or logical. This was something else entirely. "Show me the guerrilla warfare section." Thextal ordered. The screen filled with footage from a dozen different conflicts. Humans hiding in forests and mountains, using hit-and-run tactics against superior forces. Small groups of fighters attacking supply lines, assassinating leaders, and disappearing before they could be caught. In this conflict called Vietnam, a technologically advanced army fought against farmers and peasants for over 10 years, Velther explained. The advanced army had helicopters, bombs, and modern weapons. The farmers had rifles and knowledge of the jungle. The farmers won. Thextal felt something he had never experienced before in his military career: doubt. How did farmers defeat a modern army? "They refused to fight conventional battles," Velther replied. They attacked and retreated. They made the war so costly and painful that the advanced army eventually gave up and went home. Senior analyst Zeekmore approached them. She was one of the oldest members of the crew, with experience studying dozens of different species. Her skin was darker than the others, marking her as a member of the scholar caste. War Commander, I have studied the psychological profiles that accompanied this footage, Zeekmore said. The humans have a concept they call dying on your feet rather than living on your knees. They believe that some things are more important than survival. That is impossible, Vixtel replied. Survival is the most important thing. Without survival, nothing else matters. Not to humans, Zeekmore said. They have another concept called better dead than slaves. They would rather die fighting than live under someone else's control. Vextel looked at the tactical displays around the room. His analysts were running computer simulations based on the human data. The results were disturbing. What do the projections show? He asked. Zeekmore activated a holographic display that showed the solar system with Earth at the center. Red symbols marked human population centers. Green symbols showed Zephyrian occupation. Forces. If we conquer Earth using standard procedures, the war will last approximately 200 years, Zeekmore explained. The human population will never fully surrender. They will continue fighting using guerrilla tactics, terrorism, and civilian resistance. 200 years? Vextal could not believe what he was hearing. Our longest conquest took 6 months. The humans fight differently than any species we have encountered, Zeekmore continued. They do not distinguish between soldiers and civilians during wartime. Everyone becomes a potential fighter. Children, elderly people, even the wounded and sick will pick up weapons. Velther activated another display showing footage from human resistance movements. Vextal watched old men and women making explosives in their basements. He saw teenagers carrying messages through enemy lines. He saw injured soldiers refusing medical treatment so they could keep fighting. They teach their children to fight. Velther said, from a young age, humans learn that freedom is worth dying for. They have songs and stories about heroes who chose death over surrender. Vextal was beginning to understand why the human fleet had not retreated during their first battle. It was not stupidity or desperation, it was their nature. Show me their total war doctrine, Vextal ordered. The screens filled with footage. That made even the experienced Zephyrian warriors uncomfortable. Cities burning, entire populations fleeing their homes. Soldiers and civilians fighting together in the ruins of their civilization. When humans believe their survival is threatened, they abandon all rules of warfare, Zeekmore explained. They will destroy their own cities rather than let them be captured. They will poison their own water supplies. They will use any weapon available, no matter how destructive. Vextal watched footage of human scientists working on weapons that could destroy entire planets. He saw military leaders planning strategies that would result in the death of billions of people, including their own species. They have a saying, Velther added. If we must die, we will take you with us. When humans are pushed to extinction, they become focused on making their enemies pay the highest possible price. The computer finished its analysis and displayed the final projections. The numbers made Vextal feel sick. If we attempt to conquer Earth, we will lose approximately 60% of our fleet. The computer announced in its mechanical voice. Occupation will require constant reinforcement as human resistance will never completely end. The cost in Zephyrian lives will be approximately 10 million over the first 50 years. Vextal stared at the numbers. The Zephyrian collective had conquered 17 star systems and lost less than 1 million soldiers total. The conquest of Earth alone would cost them 10 times that number. There is more, War Commander, Zeekmore said. The humans have been developing what they call planet-killer weapons, nuclear bombs that can destroy continents, biological weapons that can kill entire populations. If they believe they are facing extinction, they may choose to destroy their own planet rather than let us have it. Dextal thought about the human admiral who had said her people would rather die than surrender. At the time, he had thought it was just brave words. Now he understood that she had been telling the truth. "What about their space technology?" Vixtel asked. "Surely they cannot threaten our other worlds." Velther brought up another display showing human technological development over the past century. "War Commander, humans advance very quickly when they are threatened. In less than 100 years, they went from flying in primitive aircraft to traveling in space. Their rate of innovation increases dramatically during wartime." The display showed projections of human technology over the next 50 years. If Earth was attacked, the humans would focus all of their resources on military development. Within decades, they could have weapons that threaten Zephyrian worlds. They adapt, Zikmore said. Every defeat teaches them something new. Every loss makes them stronger. If we attack them now and do not completely destroy them, they will eventually become powerful enough to threaten us. Vextal walked to the large viewing window that looked out at Earth. The blue planet hung in space, looking peaceful and beautiful. They viewed human war footage and immediately sued for Peace Part 1. First contact gone wrong. The year is 2387. Captain Jake Morrison commands the exploration vessel UES Horizon when they encounter the first alien civilization humanity has ever met. The Zelthani Empire, a proud warrior race that has conquered dozens of star systems, intercepts the human ship near the outer rim of their territory. Admiral Vex Corvain, the Zelthani fleet commander, views humans as another primitive species, ripe for conquest. The Zelthani have never lost a war in their 800-year history. Their technology appears superior: energy shields, plasma weapons, and faster-than-light communications that surpass human capabilities. Lieutenant Amy Parker, the ship's communications officer, attempts diplomatic contact. However, cultural misunderstandings arise when the Zelthani interpret human greetings as signs of weakness. Commander Lisa Brooks, the military liaison aboard the Horizon, warns Captain Morrison that the aliens seem to be positioning for attack. The Zelthani deliver an ultimatum: humanity must surrender all their worlds and submit to Zelthani rule within 10 standard days or face complete annihilation. They transmit coordinates for Earth and demand the human government's immediate response. Captain Morrison realizes they must return to Earth immediately to warn the United Earth Defense Force of the impending threat. Part 2, The Gathering Stormback. On Earth, General Alex Coleman convenes the Global Defense Council. The alien threat is unlike anything humanity has faced. President Helen Martinez authorizes full military mobilization, while simultaneously attempting diplomatic solutions. Dr. Kevin Walsh, Earth's leading xenobiologist, studies the Zelthani transmissions with his team. He discovers that the Zelthani are a hierarchical species that respects only strength and views mercy as evolutionary weakness. Their society has never experienced the concept of total war as humans understand it. Meanwhile, Admiral Susan Blake begins preparing Earth's defenses. The human fleet, while numerically smaller, possesses unique tactical advantages developed through centuries of human warfare. Colonel Frank Johnson oversees the deployment of kinetic orbital platforms. The Zelthani send a scouting force to observe human military capabilities. They witness what they believe to be standard human military exercises. Captain Morrison, now back on Earth, suggests that humans might be underestimating their own advantages. Dr. Maria Santos, a military historian, proposes an unconventional strategy. Instead of hiding humanity's true nature, they should reveal it completely. She suggests showing the Zelthani exactly what human warfare looks like throughout history. The deadline approaches, and the Zelthani main fleet begins moving toward Earth's solar system. Part 3, The Archive of Human Conflict. Dr. Santos collaborates with Colonel Johnson to compile a comprehensive archive of human warfare. They gather footage from every major conflict in human history: ancient battles, medieval sieges, the world wars, modern conflicts, and hypothetical future scenarios. The archive includes not just combat footage, but the context of human warfare, the reasons humans fight, the lengths they go to protect their own, and the psychological aspects of human conflict. Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor, a psychological warfare specialist, helps explain the human concept of total war. Captain Morrison volunteers to deliver this archive to the Zelthani despite the extreme danger. His mission is to show Admiral Corvain exactly what humanity is capable of when threatened with extinction. The Zelthani High Command, confident in their superiority, agrees to view the human military documentation before their final assault. They expect to see primitive tactics and weak resolve. Dr. Walsh accompanies Morrison to monitor Zelthani reactions. They bring neurological scanning equipment to observe how the alien minds process what they're about to witness. The viewing session takes place aboard the Zelthani flagship, with Admiral Corvain and the entire High Command present. They begin with what they assume will be a brief examination of human military weakness. Part 4. The Zelthani begin viewing the archive with amusement. Ancient human battles with swords and shields seem primitive compared to their plasma weapons. However, their amusement quickly turns to confusion, then concern. As they witness the evolution of human warfare, the footage progresses through human history, the methodical destruction of Carthage, the siege warfare of medieval times, the trenches of World War I, the strategic bombing of World War II, the guerrilla tactics of Vietnam, and the precision strikes of modern warfare. Admiral Corvain's expression changes as he realizes that humans don't just fight to win, they fight to completely destroy their enemy's ability to make war. The concept of unconditional surrender is alien to Zelthani thinking. The archive shows humans fighting in every conceivable environment: underwater, in Arctic conditions, in space, in urban warfare. Dr. Walsh observes that the Zelthani are becoming increasingly disturbed by humanity's adaptability and relentless nature. The breaking point comes when they view footage of humans continuing to fight even when facing certain death, the concept of mutually assured destruction, and scenarios where humans would rather destroy themselves than submit to conquest. Captain Morrison explains that the footage represents just a fraction of human conflicts, and that humans have been continuously at war somewhere on Earth for most of their recorded history. He mentions that peace, for humans, is merely the time between wars. Admiral Corvain realizes that conquering humanity wouldn't just mean defeating their military. It would mean fighting a species that views extinction as preferable to subjugation. Part 5. The immediate peace. The Zelthani High Command enters emergency session immediately after the viewing. Admiral Corvain contacts the Zelthani Emperor directly, something unprecedented in their military hierarchy. The footage has shaken their fundamental understanding of warfare. Dr. Walsh's neurological scans reveal that the Zelthani experienced what humans would recognize as horror and existential dread. Their species has never encountered anything like human determination and willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. Within hours, the Zelthani Emperor himself contacts Earth directly. Through Lieutenant Amy Parker's communication channels, he formally requests immediate peace negotiations. The speed of this reversal shocks the human leadership. President Martinez, General Coleman, and the Defense Council are stunned when the Zelthani not only call off their invasion but offer humanity a position of honor in their Galactic Confederation. The aliens specifically request that humans never be forced into a position where they might feel the need to demonstrate their warfare capabilities. The Zelthani withdrawal from human space is swift and absolute. They leave behind advanced technology as gifts of respect and establish a permanent embassy on Earth with the specific purpose of ensuring humans never feel threatened by Zelthani forces. Captain Morrison becomes Earth's first ambassador to the Zelthani Empire. In his initial reports, he notes that the aliens now refer to humans as the species that weaponized their own extinction and have created new military doctrines specifically designed to avoid any conflict with humanity. The story concludes with Dr. Centus reflecting on the irony that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or tactics, but simply showing their enemies who they truly were. The galaxy now knows that humans are not just warriors, they are a species that has turned warfare into an art form, and peace into a temporary strategic pause. The Zelthani Empire begins restructuring their entire military philosophy, recognizing that some species are simply too dangerous to fight, regardless of technological advantages. Earth enters a new age of galactic politics, where humanity's reputation as the species that makes war like breathing precedes them to every first contact situation. Epilogue years later, when other alien species ask the Zelthani about the mysterious humans, Admiral Covain's standard response becomes legendary throughout the galaxy. We could have conquered their worlds, but they would have conquered our nightmares.